the heck is the giant UFO? Well, there's several different theories, different people are chiming in, and also Garry Nolan is talking about the Reddit post about the alien autopsy. Get in here, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, please share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, so, yes, Stephen Greer has said he knows about the UFO. In fact, he's already talked about the giant UFO before Ross did. And here is what Stephen Greer had to say. Yes, I have to grit my teeth just to say his name, but here he is. Let's hear him out.
And he was also had dealt with a facility outside Seoul, South Korea, where there was a huge extraterrestrial vehicle that they had downed with apparently some type of electronic warfare system that was they had to carve out a huge part of the mountain just to contain this object because it was too big to move to any other site, and that it is still there.
Okay, so a giant UFO potentially in Seoul, South Korea. Some people think this is actually the building. An unconfirmed report claims a UFO too large to transport is right there, and there's a longitude and latitude. Yes, and the building is supposed to be an army facility, which would make sense. I think a lot of people like this because it's round and because it's an army facility. The height of the building is approximately 4 meters tall based on the shadow. This does not mean the housed object is 12 feet tall because it could be sunken into the ground. Well, yeah, I mean, they're assuming the building is just to house a UFO. I mean, the UFO could be deep underground. The people that built it may have no clue there's a giant UFO under them. So, but yeah, there's its location. Is that in a mountain? But yeah, this is a potential location of the UFO, if it is, or a UFO, a giant UFO in South Korea. Possibly the one that Stephen Greer is talking about. From my own research, I've seen evidence of multiple giant UFOs that are stationary, presumably crashed, in different parts of the world. One is supposed to be underneath the ocean, at the bottom of the sea. And that has been remote viewed by really excellent remote viewers, and all finding similar results, seeming to corroborate each other's results. So, I think there's probably multiples out there. So Stephen Greer could be right. Ross Coulthart could be right. Although we don't know the location that he's talking about. He knows, but we don't know. Now, of course, Richard Doty has chimed in as well. He says there's a giant UFO in Alice Springs, Australia, which would help explain why Ross knows about it. I know that he has researched a UFO crash retrieval in Australia that was apparently conducted by an aerospace company out of Long Beach, California. Interestingly, he says there was an Australian UFO crash retrieval team that went to retrieve a crash outside of Australia. But meanwhile, we have an American team coming in to retrieve a craft in Australia. I don't get it. If you do, let me know. The mechanics of the control group or the various arms of the control group elude me. But yeah, here's Alice Springs. Looks like a pleasant place. Kind of dry. Alice Springs is a remote town in Australia's Northern Territory, halfway between Darwin and Adelaide, both 1,500 kilometers away. It's a popular gateway for exploring the Red Centre, the country's interior desert region. Its 1872 origin as part of Overland Telegraph Line is preserved in the vintage buildings and equipment. Okay, all right, well, that is interesting. So there is the Alice Springs location that Richard Doty is talking about. Can we believe anything Richard Doty says? I mean, he is a former disinformation agent who contributed to the death of at least one man, a man that he actually befriended as part of that operation. So, I have questions about Richard Doty. Is he still working for the control group or whoever he was working for, the disinformation guys? Is he still working for those guys? he seems to have embedded himself in the UFO community. He goes to the conventions, he does interviews. Can you trust anything he says? I don't know. But he says Alice Springs, and, who knows? Maybe there's a giant UFO in Alice Springs. However, is there a giant building there that would, hide such a thing? I don't know. I'm not seeing a whole lot of giant buildings when I'm looking at these pictures. But, you tell me. You tell me. But I just love this idea that there's a Where's Waldo of UFOs, right? There's a giant UFO out there somewhere, and people are going to be obsessed with this thing until they find it or give up. I mean, this could go on for decades. This could go on for generations. I mean, this is the Where's Waldo of UFOs. It really is. I get a huge kick out of it. But on to other news. We have Garry Nolan chiming in about the Reddit post where the supposed molecular biologist was brought into a lab, and he names the location of the building and the specific lab where this was carried out, where they analyzed bodies of aliens. And he gives a detailed breakdown of the anatomy and of the genes, and I've already made a video about that, so check that out at your leisure. But here's what Garry Nolan said. This is a challenge to the community to determine if they can come together and analyze this logically. So here's what I would suggest, given that there are several obviously very competent molecular biologists who have already commented or asked the right kinds of questions in this Reddit thread. I would say they might organize amongst themselves and create a spreadsheet of all the relevant statements and answers to questions the original poster has put forth. Break them down into ideas and claims as individually as possible. Self-organize as a subgroup and report back in a regular scientific mode and manner. I would only focus on the biology claims. Though if a different group wants to address the non-biology issues raised, that could be another discussion and not one on which I am sufficient expert to comment. Possibly he's talking about the religious stuff. But let me know what you think he's talking about. Then for each claim, break down the credibility, pros and cons from both a scientific point of view, individually in a how does this all work together, if at all, and a separate set of considerations for whether this is an elaborate misrepresentation or a LARP. This is how many labs address putting together papers as well as answering reviewers of our papers under peer review. Businesses and project managers do the same thing. No reason it cannot be done here. It just needs to be done methodically by people with the time and interest and ability to do it. You don't have to be a card-carrying molecular biologist. My wife is one. She has no interest. Chat GPT could probably do a credible first draft. Well, I've already read what Chat GPT said, and it got some stuff wrong. Just on what was in the the report on the Reddit. He goes on, I've been flooded with requests to conclude something, but I won't assign any likelihood of the claims, as there is just not enough actual data here for me to conclude anything. It is at present an individual anecdote. My question to the community is, can you come up with a process that is credible and scientifically deterministic to consider the merits of the claims? And what would be the next steps if any of this is testable? As with everything in life, believability is a chain of custody of trust. How much do you trust the data or the people presenting it? I won't comment any further based on time constraints. I think this community has the horsepower to get this started, organize the alleged claims, and provide a template for others to be able to work from a common framework. It could be a model of how to address other claim sets that might come forward one day. Okay, well, there you go. There's Garry Nolan, encouraging people to look into this on their own initiative and to take a more scientific, methodical approach. So I think that's exactly what I would expect from Garry Nolan, and hats off to him for not dismissing this and for taking this seriously and encouraging others to investigate. So there we go. That's the Garry Nolan news. And we have one other piece of news that I'll just briefly go over, because I'm fascinated by the Mussolini UFO, and apparently there's some new information about it. This is from The Sun. on from July 3rd, a few days ago, saucery bombshell files. Saucery? What? Bombshell files released on the world's first documented UFO crash and how the U.S. recovered it. And Australian researchers shared extraordinary documents on the alleged craft after former intelligence. Why does it jump? That's so annoying. Anyway, there's new files on the Mussolini crash. I will link this article and you can read it. Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this crash. That apparently we got this ship in 44. I was thinking it was 45, but apparently the U.S. got this thing in 44. And from what I have learned, we received the heads up when we went over to Europe. We being the U.S., when we went over to Europe, we got the heads up from the Vatican that there was this UFO that Mussolini and his people had been studying, all these many years. So yeah, and it was a bell-like craft, and yeah, a bell-like craft around 10 meters in size. I'm not sure if that's diameter or height. What is it? That does not seem to match the German bell, because, well, I think the size is supposed to be different. People have looked at that. Also, that one was in Germany, and this one was in Italy. It was kept by Mussolini's government until 44, when it was recovered by agents of the OSS, which of course became the CIA. Ironically, it predates anything the public has heard about for decades, such as Roswell, etc. I don't know what's ironic about that, but it is definitely interesting that it is the first known recovered UFO. Anyway, yeah, so new information on the Mussolini UFO. I think this is super interesting. I guess I look at it from more of a science fiction author point of view, because there were a series of murders in the Marconi company, and the famous scientist Marconi was brought in to study this son of a gun, and some of this material probably wound up in the Marconi company, which may have helped it become as powerful as it has, and it's still around in various forms. And anyway, there were a series of murders among scientists working on top secret stuff in the Marconi company in the 90s. And they were dying in all sorts of weird and extravagant and unlikely ways. And this was making headlines back in the day, and I remember it from back in the day. And now I'm adding this, new context to it. Were they working on alien technology? David Grush has talked about a Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union and Russia on reverse engineering non-human technology. Could the Marconi company have been caught in the middle? Were they on one side or the other? I don't know, but I think it's juicy. And anyway, more information is coming out about this UFO, not the Marconi murders. I would love that. I think that should be made into a movie. Maybe a sensationalized movie. You got spies running around getting alien, technology and cloak and dagger stuff. But it's actually the reality is sad and tragic. There are actually multiple deaths associated with it, but it is nonetheless a very interesting story, and it may or may not have anything to do with UFO, but there you go. There is new information on the UFO available and coming out, and I hope to see more of it. And that is it for the news wrap up of the moment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Where's Waldo? Where's the giant UFO? Is it in Seoul? Is it in Alice Springs? Do you have your own pet favorite location for the son of a gun? What do you think about Garry Nolan's comments and encouraging people to investigate this matter further on their own and taking a more scientific approach to it? And what do you think about the new Mussolini files information, new corroboration that this craft existed and that it came into the custody of the United States in 1944 with a little help from the Vatican, apparently, which is really interesting. What does the Vatican know? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you have enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure appreciate it. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to interact with you guys there, and if you could share this video on social media, that would be super cool. There are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel, and I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.